finally finished My Hero Academia. I thought I would talk about all three of them, kind of their character developments from season 1 to season 6, and kind of talk about the reasons that I like them. I'm sure everybody has different things why. My number 3 favorite My Hero character is Katsuki Bakugo. I love Bakugo. I know there's a lot of people that, at least at the beginning, don't fully like him, but one of the reasons I liked him early on is I think it's because you kind of saw his character and was like, he's going to have a character development. He is going to have a good character development. Like, I just felt like by the end of the show, he's going to be different. He's not going to be the same. He's still going to have his moments of being Bakugo, but he's not going to always be the way that he was early on. Early on, he was cocky. He thought his quirk was the best quirk there was. He kind of seemed like he thought he could just already be a pro hero and just be completely fine. It really didn't seem like anything else mattered to him. It just was being number 1 hero, being a pro. His quirk was already great. No one else mattered. And I think when he goes to UA, I think he has the biggest realization of that's not all entirely true. I think UA really helps him learn all of that. That it's not just your quirk that matters. His quirk is really cool. I actually really like his quirk, but was quirkless and he was above. Ended up going into UA and kind of realizing, well, Deku was getting stronger. He was learning his faults. By the League of Villains, I think was a big thing. The moment for him when he is being taken through the portal by, I don't remember if it was Dabi or Shigaraki, one of the two. Or if it was even either one of them. Anyway. And when he sees Deku coming after him to try to save him, he says, "Stay back, Deku." And I think that was a really small moment of realizing Bakugo does care about Deku. I think that was a really small moment, but I think important beginning moment for him as well. After that, he, blames himself for All Might retiring. He becomes just so obsessed with that. And when he lets it all out with Deku and their huge, massive battle, he realizes that's all true. And I think the most important development for him was learning the truth about Deku and All Might. I think he learns, maybe even before, thought that Deku's quirk was something he was hiding. It was something he had but didn't show people. He thought like somebody said, "Oh, here you go. Here's a quirk." If he truly believed he got it from somewhere, probably just gave it to him and left. And when he has a realization of it was given to him by All Might, is known as One for All, and realizes the importance and the responsibility that comes with One for All, I think Bakugo ends up realizing, like, Deku put this weight on his shoulders and has been basically doing it alone besides with All Might. And kind of steps in to help him train, to tell him like it is. Like, All Might was kind of sugarcoating some stuff, and Bakugo was point blank saying how it was. And questioning All Might himself when it came to the fourth wielder, that he wasn't really telling them everything. And just really seeming like he cared about him enough to do those things for him. And I think season 6 was a big one, I think, for him, watching him fight alongside Deku with Shigaraki when they realize that they are after Deku, I think is what was a big moment for him. Deciding to join Deku to be with him and to protect him, possibly, even though that's not what he said. We all know what you're really doing, Bakugo. Deku is about to get impaled by Shigaraki. Watching Bakugo just move without hesitation and gets impaled himself, I think was... I loved the switch of season 1. Season 1, it was Deku who was risking himself to save Bakugo from that villain and say that his body moved on its own. And 6 seasons later, it's the other way around. It's Bakugo risking his life and saying his body moved on his own to protect Deku. I liked the interaction of those two moments. Really, they were great. But to watch him not only fight even after that, but to also, when he wakes up in the hospital, the first word he says is Deku. And how everybody else was, and everybody's condition, and who all was awake. He could have went to anyone who was conscious and went to make sure they were okay, talked to them, but instead he risked his life technically again. who knows what he could have done to his body if he fought to get to Deku. He literally forced his way to try to get to Deku, who was unconscious and couldn't talk to him anyways. I really liked that little moment there of him trying to get to Deku even though he was unconscious, and him saying that if he died he was going to kill him. But I liked that little moment there of watching Bakugo react to him being unconscious. And even when Deku decides to leave UA, and watching him kind of say, like, I know Deku more than any of you in this room, talking to Endeavor and the principal of UA and the 1A students. He's like, I know him better than anyone in this room. He's going to tell you he's fine, but he's not. Because he puts himself below everyone else. Bakugo's speech of apologizing to him for bullying him and the reason he bullied him and making him a better person, I think is really what he was trying to say. Deku made him a better person of who he is now. And the fact that he calls him Izuku, I think really got me too at the end. Like, I cried more to Bakugo's speech than I did Uraraka's. That encounter was one of my favorites in the entire show. Anytime I see that edit now on TikTok after watching it, I want to cry again. Like, it's just, Bakugo has a great character development, and I don't think it gets fully talked about enough. People, I think, don't fully like him for how he was at the beginning, but that's not fully the same Bakugo, though he is kind of still the same. We're going to still hear him yell, we're going to still hear him complain about stuff, but I think Bakugo is a good example of a character having flaws at the beginning and then watching that development and those flaws fade away. His development wasn't forced. He literally went through 6 seasons of being the way he was, but slowly watching him change as the seasons go on. And to me, I like that. I don't want a character just not have flaws at the beginning, because then there's no point for development. There's no growth there. And I like that. So I love Bakugo. Bakugo is my number 3. Obviously, my number 2 is Izuku Midoriya, the main character. Izuku, to me, has a really good development for a main character. Because at the beginning, he's so, I don't know, he's quirkless. He doesn't really have, any traits or anything that would make you see him be a hero besides, what All Might witnesses and his body moving on its own to save Bakugo. Scrawny, he really didn't have a lot of muscle, and I love his development when it comes to his quirk alone, because it wasn't like All Might saying, oh, here you go, here's a piece of my hair, eat it, and you'll have a quirk. And that was it, I like the fact that he literally had to go through intense training just to get his body ready to even start the process of taking One For All. And I also like that it takes literally until, season 4 or 5 to even use One For All without hurting himself. I mean, he literally goes through 4 or 5 seasons of injuring himself severely if he used One For All at a certain percentage. And I like that it took time for him to get to that state. I do feel like the other perks he possesses in 5 and 6 were a little quick versus One For All in general, but I still think that, at least with Black Whip, he was able to, it took a little bit for him to master it, and then the other 2 that he received, it kind of just seemed like he was already decent with it. I like watching his development, especially once he gets into UA. I think UA really helps him with learning what it's like to be a hero, and all the experience that his class gets in general, I think, was a big thing. A good development for him. The entire experience he has with the training camp, with what happens with Bakugo, having to deal with a lot of troubled things too, like with Yuri, is it Yuri? I don't remember how to say her name. Everything with her and Overhaul, I think, was a big thing, that she was basically being used to create a way to get rid of people's quirks, either for a short amount of time or forever. And he had a moment of saving her and it didn't work, and he became determined to save her. And I think it was also a good moment for him to realize you're not always going to succeed. But that's when you learn from it. and you work your way to succeed the second time if you can. And I think that was really cool to watch, kind of him and Lemillion as well, watching all of that. Night Eye, especially after, getting to know him a little bit more. But that part drove me crazy. But I do like the fact that Deku did prove he was worthy of having the quirk in the end before what happens with Night Eye. But to me, it was kind of like he needed that little obstacle that not everybody is going to treat him the same way others have. But I also think it was a good development for Deku too after losing Night Eye, was that it kind of gave him and Lemillion as well a moment of realizing people are not always going to come back. It's not always going to go how you want it to. Things are going to happen. And I think they both learned from that too, and it makes them better heroes in the end. I think that there's a lot of people as well that don't fully like Deku because of kind of how he is at the beginning, where he cries a lot. He can kind of be a crybaby. But I think if you look into that further, he was an only child with a single mother. He literally spent, 15 years of his life thinking he couldn't be a hero or was doubting if he could be one because he was quirkless. And that was all he wanted. That's what Deku wanted, was to be a hero. And basically being told, you don't have a quirk, so you basically can't be a hero. But he still tried. And I think a lot of that is what brings out his emotion, which I think is a good thing. I like the fact that he has a little bit of an emotional side. And yeah, he might cry, but you know what? He can kick your ass. He is strong, he is capable, and he can hurt you if he has to. Battle with Shigaraki, I think, was the big thing. Him, pretty much everyone failing. All the heroes technically failed. And it was a good thing to realize that sometimes it's going to happen. Sometimes the heroes are going to lose. But it's what you do after that that shows who you truly are. And for him to decide to run because Shigaraki he realizes he's after One For All. He leaves the civilians and everyone else to try to get away. Bakugo follows him. Him saying, he's after me, let me be bait, is pretty much what he's saying. Even though risking Shigaraki taking One For All from him. When it was all over and he wakes up, that he decides he doesn't want to go back to UA because UA now has refugees from this battle, and he doesn't want to put them in the line of fire if Shigaraki comes after him again. And which causes his vigilante arc to try to get information on where Shigaraki is instead of Shigaraki attacking him attacking Shigaraki. Which was a good idea, I think, in theory, but I think having Deku do it on his own and not having people, All Might tried to get him to rest. They all tried to get him to rest, but I think it would have taken Bakugo, Todoroki, or Raka, Ida, them to make him calm down and take breaks and eat, I think is what they needed to do. The entire battles with his class, watching them say what he means to them, and I think was a good thing for him to hear with all of the darkness and the stuff he was dealing with that he's putting on his shoulders because of One For All and All For One. And he needed to hear all of that. So I love Deku. I can't wait to see what all he does in season 7. I think for a main character, he's got really great development. I like watching videos and clips on TikTok of him in season 1 and then a few later watching him in season 5 or 6. And I'm like, he's the same, but he's not. And I like his development for being the main character. I think they do a really good job at his development. Now to my number 1 favorite character in My Hero Academia is Shoto Todoroki. I love Shoto. He kind of reminded me of Zuko a little bit, and I love Zuko, so I kind of knew Todoroki was probably going to be one of my favorites pretty much the entire time, which he has. As a lot of people know, Todoroki at the beginning was kind of similar to Bakugo, besides the angerment part. He was obsessed with being number 1. He was obsessed with proving he could one day surpass All Might because of his father. He wanted to prove to his father that he could go through being a hero without using his fire quirk. And he would slowly use his mother's ice quirk. I even have a Funko Pop that I'm sitting here looking at as an example there. I loved his story too. I liked kind of get a better understanding of why Todoroki is the way that he is at the beginning, and watching him kind of slowly but surely, kind of like Bakugo, start to care about the people around him, starts to realize over time he needs to accept his past, and having this start of talking to his mother, watching him go visit his mother, starting to have a bond with her, and I think starts to slowly change Todoroki into the one we see in season 6. And I liked his showdown with Deku in season 1, I think, whenever they do the fighting festival thing. Like, Deku, instead of just being determined to win, he was determined to show Todoroki that that fire quirk is not his father's, it's his quirk. That was a key start for Todoroki, and saying that he could start that process of being different, of changing, of maybe fully understanding that he can use his fire quirk because it's his, it's not his father's. And because he was only technically fighting at 50% of his capability. And now using fire, he is doing 100% of his capability. And even with his fight with Bakugo, I think was another example of that. Bakugo said, come at me with 100% of your power. I don't want no 50% shit. I want 100. I think that really starts to bring the process to his development is in that festival. The biggest moment for me in realizing just how much Todoroki had changed was the festival where UA and Class 1A, they all had to do some type of event thing, and they all do that dance, that really cool dance thing with the song Hero 2. And I mean, that was his idea, technically. He was involved in making that happen. And I was like, wow, Todoroki is involved with his classmates. He's involved in making these other classes show that UA is, or 1A is just like them. And he was wanting that. And I thought that was a really big step for him. And I liked seeing him around Deku, Bakugo, and even Ida too. He was around those main people for the most part. And he really starts to get bonds with everyone slowly but surely because of that. I think the other biggest thing was going to Endeavor's agency, and before that watching Endeavor fight that Nobu. I think that's what it was called. Sure. We're going to call it that. And him fighting that Nobu with Hawks, I think, was another thing of slowly realizing maybe his father has changed, but still not fully there to accept it yet. I liked watching him not only go to his father's agency, but he also asked Bakugo and Deku to go with him. And I thought that was a really cool other development for him, was for him deciding that he didn't really want to do it alone, so asked the two of his closest people he felt like he had, who didn't have agencies to go to, and asked them. And you know, I liked kind of watching them all work together, fight together, train at the agency together. And I think all of that was a good for Todoroki and his father, too. I also want to point out the scene of them going to Todoroki's family house and having dinner. That entire thing was really funny to me. I liked watching every time Todoroki's oldest brother said something to their father, like snarky or whatever. The reactions of not only Deku, but even Bakugo was really funny. I think for Todoroki, and I think we really see a good development for him in season 6, and we all know why, because it's discovered that the villain Dabi in the League of Villains is actually his oldest brother who died when he was younger. Toya? I think it's Toya. Toya? Yeah, Toya. Really shook Shoto and Endeavor, to the point that Endeavor couldn't even move. But yet, Todoroki was the one who started fighting him. He was the one who was taking a stand and fighting him and trying to stop him. And I I liked seeing that he was the one standing up and saying, like, he's telling his father, like, come on, like, we gotta do this. Like, what, snap out of it already. And I think after all of that, watching his father with Toya, who he blames for his death, and even afterwards when they're in the hospital, seeing him break down like that, I think showed Shoto that he has changed. And I liked Shoto, and I loved his family when being there, even his mother being there. But Shoto basically telling him that when you have to find Dabi, you're not going to do it alone. That Shoto was going to be right there with him, because not only does Toya hate their father for everything, he also hates Shoto, because Shoto was the one who had both quirks. That's what Endeavor wanted. They bring Deku back to UA. He says that everybody is skeptical about him being there too because of who Dabi actually is. And he's like, I want to prove to people as well that I am not my father. I am not my brother. I am Shoto Todoroki. I really liked that. And I also liked Todoroki when Deku falls asleep, finally, after talking to All Might. He's like, gives him a blanket and covers him up with the blanket. I thought was really cute. But I love Todoroki. He is a great character. I loved his development too. Him and Bakugo's, I think, are really good. And Todoroki, Deku as well. I think all three of them have great developments in this show. This is my top 3 favorite characters in My Hero Academia. I hope you guys liked my little video about my favorites and their developments. If anybody also loves them, let me know. I'm happy you guys are here and believe it.